For the past 20 years, the nonprofit Esplanade Association has been trying to help maintain and improve the city's public space along the Charles River. After last year's distancing and shutdowns, outdoor activities are on the way back, and that includes the first ever Community Day being held on Sunday. To tell us what's planned is the association's executive director, Michael Nichols. Thank you very much for being with us again, Michael.
Thanks, Chris, for having me.
Michael, I want to have you talk about the association and the anniversary, because it's really difficult to look at a picturesque space like the Charles River Esplanade and imagine it being neglected. And there is a state agency that oversees it. So why would you need an association or a friends group to make things work better?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the Esplanade itself, as many may know, has been around about 100 years and was essentially 100% reclaimed from the Charles River. So there used to be these muddy tidal flats off of the present day Back Bay that got filled in to create large swaths of the downtown area. And that includes the Esplanade. So we were originally a manufactured space, but for the better part of 100 years became a natural environment right in the heart of the city, but a natural environment that takes care. And so it's always been under the care, custody, and control of a government agency. It's a state park, so it's typically been the State Parks Agency for the last, say, 25 or 30 years or so. That's been DCR. But as with almost anything that government manages on our behalf, resources are stretched, statewide. Resources can be thin. I think sometimes parks don't get their due when up against roads, bridges, tunnels, public education, healthcare, you name it. There's so many things that a government's responsible for doing. And so about 20 years ago, our group is part of really a wave in America of nonprofits that formed to try and help fund improvements to public parks and take care of them better. The Central Park Conservancy in a lot of ways is the gold standard, but more locally, the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, the Esplanade Association, the Rose Kennedy Greenway Conservancy are three examples.
Well, a lot of people around the world see the Esplanade in those July 4th concerts. So this is a magnet for visitors. But what about during the pandemic, when most of those visitors were not around? How important was this to people right here in the city?
Yeah, I think there was certainly less of the national and international travel to Boston, but we actually found that we probably ended up as busy as ever with locals, those who wanted to take day trips from places in Massachusetts. I mean, we've all kind of put it out of our heads now, but there was a time last year where you could only go to three places: a grocery store, a pharmacy, and a public park, when we were really at the worst of the pandemic. And so, we saw, visitorship in a lot of ways rise despite the kind of full-scale cancellation of events and activities. So it was just those that needed that respite in the city to clear their mind, to feel healthy again with gyms closed. We saw people run, walk, bike, bring kids, use our playgrounds, or really just trying to get out and stretch in the morning and find a little bit of normalcy in a year that was very not normal.
Well, I don't think we're ready for going back to those pre-pandemic dense multitudes, but there have been more people coming to the Esplanade lately, and you've been having events. How has that been working out?
Yeah, by middle of May this summer, I think we weren't certain what we could bring back this year. And with the governor's announcement at that time that Massachusetts would largely reopen at the end of the month, with, of course, some continuing precautions, we decided to try and bring back as much of our programming schedule as we could. We, of course, have the benefit of being fully open air. So whether you're taking in a concert at the Hat Shell or are enjoying one of our fitness classes, or one of our children's events and activities, or taking a tour, or volunteering with a corporate group, all of that's open air. And so we felt that people were more comfortable coming back to activities like that. It's been a great summer. We're towards the end of our fitness season now. We're starting to see the winding down of the Boston Landmarks Orchestra concerts on Wednesday nights. But we're excited for kind of our late summer, early fall schedule that's coming up, and it's punctuated by this weekend's Community Day.
Yes, I want to ask you about the events in that day. One of the first things happening is a 5K race, and I guess this will benefit the association too, right?
Right. So this is, last year we ended up having to cancel our four biggest fundraisers of the year. All four of them occurred at a point in the calendar after the start of the public health pandemic. And so the 5K is one of our most popular, one of our longest running. We've been doing a 5K almost 10 years now. We've sort of dubbed it Boston's most beautiful 5K, and it really is. I mean, you're running along the banks of the Charles River. It's unlike any other course, I think, in greater Boston. And it typically occurs in May. And last year we had to move it virtual, and we did it in in June, but this year, based on kind of the timing of the reopening in Massachusetts, we pegged it for the end of August on a Sunday morning, figuring that would give people enough time to feel comfortable with coming back to events that have at least, some couple hundred folks, even as we have some COVID precautions that'll help spread people out for the race.
Well, a bit later in the day on Sunday, you have an event. I think this is mainly about families and kids, and it's participatory. It's not just sitting and listening. So tell us how that's supposed to work.
That's right. Yeah, one of our new partners this year was the Boston Music Project. And together with Boston Music Project, we've been running essentially children's music classes, interactive classes. Most of the summer they'd have occurred at our Stoneman Playground. One of the things we did during the pandemic was make about $250,000 of improvements to our 20-year-old, Stoneman Playground near Fairfield Street on the Esplanade. And most of those improvements included bringing new musical instruments into the park. So giving kids an opportunity to bang on chimes or to dance on these beautiful dance chimes that you can actually, dance on or roll on in a wheelchair and make music and make noise. And it's really beautiful. So the Boston Music Project has been leading these interactive music classes to teach kids how to use those instruments. And so we're going to kind of punctuate that successful first season with those partners by having a participatory music day as part of the community day for families.
Well, even though this is the first community day, this is also, I think, the fourth time around for the Groundbeat Music Festival. Tell our viewers what that is going to be bringing.
Yeah, totally. So the Groundbeat Music series, as you mentioned, is in its fourth year. It had to go virtual last year, but over the last 4 years, it's been a wonderful opportunity to spotlight artists of color from around Boston and music producers of color from around Boston and provide them the amazing venue that is the Hat Shell as a fitting opportunity to reach new audiences and come and perform a concert free to the public. And it's been growing each year in terms of interest in both performing and we've had some wonderful audiences attending. It's being produced this year and for the fourth year in a row by BAMS Fest, the Boston Art, Music, and Soul Fest, and their producer Catherine Morris, who's just fantastic. And so there'll be 4 45-minute to 1 hour long concerts starting at 12, 1, 2, and 3 p.m. Right at the Hat Shell, free of charge, very family friendly. So I think folks, whether they just happen to be wandering by or make it a destination, would really enjoy that activity.
It also occurs to me here that this is about getting different kinds of people to come to the Esplanade, not just people who like to hear classical music, for example.
That's right. I mean, the Boston Pops, the Landmarks Orchestra, and even tonight's Handel and Haydn Society concert at the Hat Shell offer, some really wonderful music, and much of it is classical. Much credit to the Landmarks Orchestra, who's certainly broadened their, the types of music they feature in those concerts each year. But right, I mean, for the Esplanade Association, for sort of who we are, one of our mission points is to try and broaden who feels welcome in the park, who feels like it's a park for them. It is, at the end of the day, the busiest state park in Massachusetts with over 3 million visitors a year. And so while most parks are kind of local amenities for folks that live nearby, we take very seriously the fact that the Esplanade is a state asset. And so we want to try and feature as many different communities, cultures, styles of music, performers who've never had that opportunity before as we are able to.
I have to make one confession, that both as a concert goer and even one time as a musician playing on the Esplanade, there are times when I'm distracted from the music and I'm looking at the surroundings, or I might even just wander off. What about that quality of the Esplanade?
It really is special. I can't claim to be a good enough musician to ever be appearing on the Hat Shell stage, but the few times that I've been up there helping to introduce some of our partners and our acts, it's wonderful to see the way and the seriousness with which I think artists take the opportunity to be on the Hat Shell. It is, if not the largest, then one of the largest performing arts venues in America, right? As you mentioned, the Boston Pops concert that occurs each 4th of July sees a crowd that sometimes approaches 500,000 spectators. And so there are very few places in America that can have that kind of musical impact and that kind of history. And so, we've had many of the BAMS Fest producers and performers in years past say, as a little girl, I grew up, a couple miles from the Hat Shell, coming to the 4th of July concert, never thinking that I'd be able to perform on that stage. And here I am today, and I'm just so appreciative for the opportunity. And I think that connection is something we're really interested in supporting.
I want to ask about one other kind of connection, and I think this is unique to the association because yeah, I know we have state agencies involved and other agencies, but for example, when they were doing the restoration of the Longfellow Bridge, and there were some complicated questions about how people can access the Esplanade. Tell me about the importance of the association as far as having some insight on that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, I mean, DCR does a terrific job with the day-to-day care and management of the Esplanade, and we love being partnered with them, and it's been a good partnership for 20 years. But what an organization like the Esplanade Association does is provide a sounding board to the public and a place where you can go and know that you have accountability in terms of, you know, an organization that's formed specifically to help support the Esplanade. Will listen and try and carry your feedback back. Will quantify it and present it to decision makers in a timely way to make important improvements to projects that will impact your life. And so the Longfellow is an excellent example. There were a number of similar partners that we were able to help bring together there, from Walk Boston to Livable Streets to the Mass Bike folks. But then also, you know, the advocacy that the Esplanade Association put forth to also add the fantastic new Fanny Appleton footbridge, which replaced the old Charles Street footbridge into the park. For those, any viewers that haven't experienced this yet, you know, take the T to Charles MGH or walk up Charles Street in Beacon Hill and enter the Esplanade from, you know, in between the Liberty Hotel and the Whitney Hotel. Is this dramatic, beautiful, award-winning, you know, new bridge, the Fanny Appleton, designed by Miguel Rosales, who also had a hand in, of course, the Zachem Bridge locally. And it's those types of improvements that a group like ours is able to catalyze and encourage the state to make sure that they do everything right that they can.
And one more I should ask you, I guess the Charles Bank Playground, you got some money coming in for that, maybe?
That's right. Just in the last couple of months, we announced a partnership with former New England Patriots player Rob Gronkowski to do a 100% overhaul of the oldest playground in the park now, the Charles Bank Playground, which sits kind of at our eastern end. So if you're visiting the Museum of Science with kids or grandkids, and are looking for sort of another free activity or a free activity to add to your day, the Charles Bank Playground is nearby. I think in probably the next year or so, we will put shovels in the ground and start a full-scale renovation in partnership with Gronk. I think it'll take on his name and eventually be the Gronk Playground, a modern, accessible park for kids. I think will feature, you know, sports and fitness, you know, play, in addition to just some modern ways that kids can enjoy being on the Esplanade. And rumor has it there may even be a replica duck boat or two for all of his rides through the streets of Boston for their championships.
It would definitely look in place. Finally, I know the community day is 9 to 4 on Sunday. If people want some more details about events or volunteering, where can they find that?
Absolutely. So they can visit esplanade.org for all the information about anything we do, but especially this upcoming community day this weekend. We still have bibs on sale for those that would like to run with us. Again, there's a number of COVID precautions in place. We'll have a rolling start so people don't bunch up at the start line and can run kind of at their own pace with as much space as they may want. So bibs remain on sale, and that is a fundraiser to support our organization. And that'll be followed by the children's music classes. We'll have food trucks on site, and then it'll be culminated by the 12 to 4 free concert at the Hat Show.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks, Chris. Always enjoy talking to you.
Michael Nichols from the Esplanade Association. We'll have more news in just a moment.